Welcome everyone, it's Larica here. I'm just doing a voice recording today instead of the video because I don't have a space yet for recording images. I've just recently moved into a new place, so things are still getting settled for me. But I want to talk today about the month of June on Patreon. And our theme for June is focused on releasing anger. And I think we all have times when we feel this very powerful emotion inside of us. Especially maybe even now, where we might feel stuck or feel that we might not have control over our lives. So I think anger is a good theme for this month of June. And we have different strategies of dealing with anger, right? Some of us go silent, we retract. We have a term for that in my language, in Afrikaans. We call it stilstaper. What a word. A direct translation of that is silent fit. So you have a silent fit. So that's one way of dealing with it. Another is releasing it in some verbal or physical aggression. So some people go for a fast, intense walk or a run, and others may shout at the top of their lungs. There's so many ways that we respond to this emotion called anger. And that's what anger is, right? It's an emotion. It's all it is. It's just an emotion. The same as being happy or sad, they are emotions. And we decide that some emotions are good and others are bad. We say sadness is a bad emotion, happiness is a good emotion. And I want to tell you today that just like we can learn to focus our minds on a single object during our meditation practice, we can also teach our mind to focus and manage our emotions so that they don't control us, and not in pushing them down and count to 10 kind of way, right? But rather that we can feel all our emotions, even the ones that we call bad, and then we can learn to accept them and learn from them and eventually let them go. A lot of the pain comes from the stories that we tell ourselves. Yeah, that's a lot of pain that comes in our life comes from that. Let me give you an example. This is a simple one. You are with the love of your life, and you're having a nice glass of red wine, and you're watching the sunset, and you really feel happy, complete. Now you can tell yourself many stories about this situation, and those stories become your reality. They become your truth. So you can say that I'm at my happiest when I sit with my love, watching the sunset, and drinking a glass of wine. So now what happens on a cloudy day? Or if you're having a glass of juice, or heaven forbid your love leaves you for someone else? Does that mean that you are no longer happy? If we attach too many emotions and truths to our stories, then all these things can make us feel less happy and even depressed. Let's look at another example. Someone cut you off in traffic, and now you are angry, like seriously angry. You don't know that person. You have no idea who he or she is, but the anger you feel towards them is like a living thing inside of you. So what do you do with that? Is it possible to stop yourself before you arrive at the outburst point? And I'm not yet talking again about pushing it down, like ignoring the anger, but accepting it. Like, is it possible to recognize the signs before you blow your top? And the simple answer is yes. Yeah, you can do that. And let's look at our example again. Firstly, you have no idea why this person cut you off. You can come up with stories, yes. You can say, maybe he or she had an emergency and had to get somewhere really urgent. Maybe they had to get to hospital to say goodbye to a loved one. Or maybe they were very late for a very important meeting. Or maybe they're just an asshole. But none of this really matters. I mean, does it really matter why they cut you off? It doesn't really. What matters is how you deal with the situation. So, say you get really angry when this happens, right? It doesn't mean that you are a bad person, nor does it mean that the person that did the cutting off is bad either. It's the story we tell ourselves about the situation. The attachment to the story that creates the anger, and that is not so helpful. So let's look at how this can play out after you've started to recognize your emotions, such as anger, and you've begun to work with it a little bit. So this is how it could happen, right? This person cuts you off and you get angry. And you feel it in your chest, like you feel it in your breathing, in your pulse. And then you actually become aware of it. You catch yourself that moment before you let it out. You realize what is about to happen. You're aware of it. And you give yourself the permission to decide what comes next. Am I going to shout? Or am I going to let it go? You may very well decide to shout, and that's okay. But it's your choice, that you are not a slave to your emotions. That's the answer to becoming more at peace. Does that make sense? I mean, these decisions that we're talking about, they're just like a split second most of the time. They can take longer, but mostly it's a split second. Doesn't matter. What matters is that we realize that we have a choice, and that we make the choice that feels right at that moment, the choice that feels right at this moment. So for this month's Patreon, one of the activities that we have is our usual guided meditation. And this meditation will help you look at your emotions, especially anger. And you can begin to recognize your emotions and anger and learn to start to work with it. I find it really works for me for all my emotions, even the ones that I label as good emotions, not just the ones that I call bad. Yeah. So in addition to the meditation, we also will use journaling to identify the anger, our anger, and find out the ways that we deal with it. You can print out a PDF with 30 prompts to write through. It will be one for every day of the month. And there will also, as usual, be a couple of bonus posts during the month, just to keep you motivated and help you keep going. I am so happy that you are on this journey with me. And if you haven't signed up yet to my Patreon, you can do so for only $2 a month. It works like Netflix. You can cancel anytime. And just like Netflix, when you sign up, you have access to all the videos and printable activities and journal prompts. And you walk this journey at your own pace. You can start at any place and skip themes. It's all up to you how you do this. So I invite you to join me and walk with me. And I wish you a wonderful month filled with peaceful moments.